I grew up in Terrebonne Parish, Louisiana, and for almost a decade, something was wrong in the bayous around us. The local newspaper covered his eventual arrest in 4 paragraphs. Men were disappearing, bodies were turning up in cane fields and drainage ditches, and the man responsible was not some shadowy outsider. He was short, overweight, walked with a cane, and lived among us. He looked like somebody's uncle. He offered rides to strangers and smiled at people on the street. His name was Ronald Joseph Dominique, and between 1997 and 2006, he killed 23 men and boys in southeastern Louisiana before anyone even considered him a suspect. By the end of this video, you will understand exactly how that was possible, and it will bother you. This is Dark Reflex. Tonight we go deep into the sugarcane flats of Louisiana, into the case of the Bayou Strangler, where a serial killer operated in plain sight for nearly a decade, and where the victim society forgot paid the price with their lives. Ronald Joseph Dominique was born on January 9, 1964, in Thibodaux, Louisiana, a small city in Bayou country, the kind of place where everyone knows everyone and outsiders are noticed immediately. He was the youngest of 6 children. His parents were seasonal laborers. They lived in a trailer park. Growing up, Ronald was obese and effeminate. He was bullied relentlessly throughout school. He sang in the choir. He had almost no friends. There was nothing in that picture that would mark him as dangerous, which is, of course, the point. By August 1996, Ronald Dominique was 32 years old, and his violence had already escalated to rape. A neighbor heard screaming. A man had escaped through Ronald's window, shouting that he had been raped and nearly killed. Dominique was arrested. The case went to court in November of that year, but the victim could not be located. The charges were dropped. That dismissal would prove catastrophic. Under Louisiana law at the time, DNA collection required a felony conviction, not an arrest. So Dominique's DNA never entered the CODIS national database. Investigators working the case years later would estimate that had his 1996 DNA profile been logged, at least 15 subsequent murders might have been prevented. 15 men, still alive. I want you to sit with that number for a moment. 15 men who would still be alive if one arrest had been processed differently. If this case matters to you, and it should, subscribe to Dark Reflex. These are the stories that should have been told. Instead, with no record following him, Ronald Dominique went back to his life. He delivered pizzas. He walked the streets of small bayou towns. He talked to strangers. And in 1997, he killed for the first time. What investigators didn't know yet, what nobody knew, was that every single one of the bodies that would follow had been put there by the same pair of hands. The first confirmed victim was David Mitchell. He was 19 years old. His body was found near Hahnville in 1997. 6 months later, Gary Pierre, 20 years old, was found in St. Charles Parish. In July 1998, Larry Ranson, 38, was found in the same parish. The bodies kept appearing in cane fields, in drainage ditches, on the shoulders of back roads, remote locations, quiet places where nobody was likely to look until something already smelled wrong. Dominique's method was consistent. He would approach men and teenage boys on the street while they were walking or riding their bikes. He would start talking to them. Easy conversation. He was not threatening. He was not imposing. He offered rides. He offered money for sex. In some cases, he told men he had a wife at home and showed them a photograph, using that as an enticement. Once a man agreed to go with him, once they were isolated and alone, Dominique would bind his victim. Then he would rape them. Then he would strangle or suffocate them. Then he would drive to somewhere even more remote and dump the body. None of the victims showed signs of a physical struggle. No broken bones, no defensive bruising. That detail puzzled investigators for years. It spoke to the method. Dominique was not overpowering people with brute force. He was controlling them through coercion, through the threat of violence once they were already bound and terrified. When investigators later asked him why he had moved from rape to murder, his answer was direct. He said he was afraid of going back to jail for rape. So he started killing his victims to make sure they could never report him. Most of his victims were young black men. Many were homeless. Many used drugs, engaged in sex work, or had criminal records. They were, by Louisiana's own measure at the time, invisible. Their disappearances generated little to no media coverage. Their families filed reports that went largely unacted upon. The communities they came from had no political leverage, and Ronald Dominique understood that. He selected people who would not be searched for urgently, people whose absence would not trigger alarm bells. Louisiana runs on parishes, not counties. Each parish has its own law enforcement. Each sheriff answers to his own jurisdiction. A body found in Terrebonne Parish was Terrebonne's problem. A body in Iberville Parish was Iberville's problem. There was no centralized system connecting these discoveries. Nobody was looking at the full picture. And so, for years, pattern recognition failed. Individual sheriffs were aware of unsolved murders in their jurisdictions. They were not aware those murders were connected to unsolved murders 40 miles away in someone else's. The Louisiana State Police did launch a task force after David Mitchell's death in 1997, bringing together sheriffs from 9 parishes. The FBI was eventually called in as the body count grew. Special Agent Jim Bernazzani later confirmed that FBI profilers considered Dominique's case the most significant they had encountered in terms of the number of victims acquired in such a short period of time. And still, not once during his entire spree was Ronald Dominique a suspect. In 2004, 2 men came forward. They were assault survivors, men Dominique had approached and attempted to bind who had managed to escape. They described the same person, a short, heavy-set white man walking with a cane who had offered them sex and then tried to restrain them. Composite sketches were drawn and circulated. It was the first solid physical description investigators had. But years still passed without an arrest. The answer, when it finally came, did not come from a witness. It did not come from a tip. It came from something Dominique himself had left behind 9 years earlier. Something he didn't even know the system had kept. It was not until October 2006 that the break came. The body of 27-year-old Christopher Sutterfield was found on the shoulder of Highway 69 in Iberville Parish, over an hour's drive from Houma, the farthest Dominique had ever traveled to dispose of a body. That same month, DNA recovered from the body of a man named Manuel Reed was run through CODIS. It matched Ronald Joseph Dominique. Hair found on the body of Oliver Lee Banks matched as well. His 1996 rape arrest, DNA, had finally been entered retroactively into the system. The man who should have been in that database a decade earlier was now in it, and now he was linked to murder. In the aftermath of those DNA matches, Louisiana expanded its mandatory DNA collection laws to include felony arrests rather than convictions only. It was a change that came too late for David Mitchell, Gary Pierre, Larry Ranson, Christopher Sutterfield, Manuel Reed, Oliver Lee Banks, Wayne Smith, and 16 others whose names deserve to be remembered. On December 1st, 2006, police moved on Ronald Dominique. They found him at a homeless shelter in Houma, Louisiana. He was short, overweight. He had a heart condition. He had been living in a shelter. He offered no resistance. At the sheriff's station, investigators confronted him with the DNA results. Dominique waived his right to an attorney. He started talking. Within 20 minutes, he was confessing. He talked for 9 hours straight. He told them about Oliver LeBancs, that he had met Oliver in the French Quarter, that they had gone to his car, that Oliver had pulled a knife on him. He said he panicked. He hit him with a tire iron. He choked him to death with a seatbelt. Whether that account is entirely true, only Dominique knows. He told them how and where each man had been killed. He gave details only the killer could have known. Sheriff Jerry Larpenter later confirmed. He stated how, when, and where every victim was killed. By the end of those 9 hours, Ronald Dominique had confessed to 23 murders across southeastern Louisiana between 1997 and 2006. Subscribe to Dark Reflex. Every case I cover is a case that deserves more attention than it got. In court, he was rolled in a wheelchair. He mumbled, "Not guilty," to each of the 9 counts read against him while his sister watched from the gallery. 30 relatives of his victims sat in the same room. He eventually pleaded guilty to avoid the death penalty. On September 23, 2008, he was sentenced to 8 consecutive life terms without the possibility of parole. He is currently incarcerated at Angola State Penitentiary in Louisiana. At sentencing, a woman named Angela Smith sat in that courtroom. Her son Wayne was one of the 23. She said she wished she could have spoken to Dominique directly. She said she wanted to ask him one question. "Before you killed my child, what were his last words?" Another family member stood and described how their brother had been left in a cane field. By the time he was found, there was almost nothing left. They said, "We had to bury bones." Stay in the dark with me.